So far, we talked about arithmetic sequence and also geometric sequence, all right? How do we graph these types of functions? So this is what we are going to discuss. So here I have two examples for you. 7, 11, 15, 19. You can continue the terms of the sequence. Here you have 2, 4, 8, 16, and the rest of the sequence terms. Well, what's the graph look like? How do I visualize this? What is a difference between this function f of n equals to? Well, as you remember, it is 7 plus n minus 1 times 4, 4n plus 3, versus f of x equals to 4x plus 3. What is the difference between these two? I expect you to ask these types of questions. So remember, f of n, in this case, is 2 to power n. What is the difference between this function and this function? 2 to the x. How the graph is different. So when it comes to sequence, you have gaps between the terms. So let's take a look at the graph together. Here I have my horizontal line, which is represented by n. Let me just move it a little bit here so I can graph the other guy for you as well. So this is n and this is x. F of x on the right hand side and f of n on the other side. So this is important. Usually students feel confused when they see a sequence versus a function, a regular function that they saw in algebra and at the beginning of the course. So if I ask you to graph f of n, you're going to say that, hey, when n is equal to 1, I get output 7. So when n is 1, I have 7. This is the very first dot on the graph. When n is 2, I get 11. So n is 2, I have 11. When n is 3, I have 15. N is 3, I get 15. When n is 4, I have 19. When I plug in 4 here, 4 times 4, 16 plus 3 gives me 19. 4, 19. All right. If I plug in 5, I expect to get the next number, which is 24. So these dots, they continue, but you are not allowed to connect them. There must be a gap between these gaps. You must have gaps for these types of functions, f of n. But if I ask you to graph f of x, you're going to say that, hey, this is just a regular line. I can plug a 0. At 0, I have a 3. Well, if I plug in -1, I get -1. If I plug in 1, I get 7. I connect these and I have my f of x. It continues on all sides. This is my f of x. 4x plus 3. This is a difference between these two graphs. For a sequence, you have gaps. You have a starting point and there are some dots. But when it comes to a function, there is no gap. It's continuous. Know the difference between f of x, because x can take on any value on the horizontal line. You can plug in 0, you can plug in square root of 2, you can plug in negative values and so on. But for a sequence, if n is equal to 1, you have a 7. When n is equal to 2, you have 11, 3, 15, 4, 19. You are not allowed to plug in fractions here, all right? You are not allowed to plug in square root here. This is a discrete function.